Coming up on A SkinDepth Convo.
The life sciences today, biology, medicine, is where physics was 100 years ago. And we, at this particular point in time, have the rare opportunity to knock on that door and start looking through it and seeing what is there and finding ways to translate that into meaningful interventions that make the lives of us and our children, our grandchildren better.
This is a show focused on educating and inspiring all those in the skincare and beauty industry. But it is also a show for those looking to improve themselves from the inside out. In each episode, we explore the latest trends, breakthrough technologies, and get expert insights within the dynamic world of skincare and beauty. If you're looking to further your beauty education and nurture your passion, you're in the right place. Renowned experts and hosts Metaxia Dalikas and Francine Kagarakis aim to educate and inspire through their own experiences and are dedicated to enlightening and empowering enthusiasts and professionals in the realm of skincare and beauty. Join the conversation and the fun with A SkinDepth Convo. Welcome to A SkinDepth Convo. I'm Aryé Elfenbein. Whenever a new technology enters the skincare world, it's natural for questions to follow. At A SkinDepth Convo, our goal has always been to encourage conversations rooted in education and science. Professionals and consumers alike learn about new ingredients and innovations, and understanding the science behind them becomes just as important as seeing the results. Now, Lira Clinical's new REGEN Line introduces Marine Cellular Complex, an innovative regenerative ingredient developed by Wildtype. Now, since its launch, we received some thoughtful questions about the technology and how it works. Now, rather than answering those questions by ourselves, we want to go directly to the scientists who developed it. So joining us today are Dr. Aryé Elfenbein, a co-founder of Wildtype, and Dr. Lira Weiss of BiomeMimetics, two of the scientific leaders behind Marine Cellular Complex, also known as wild salmon stem cell conditioned media. They're joined by our expert hosts and Lira Clinical founders, Metaxia Dalikas and Francine Kagarakis. But before we dive into today's conversation, let's take a moment to reintroduce Dr. Elfenbein and Dr. Weiss and share the expertise that they bring to the table. Now, Dr. Aryé Elfenbein is a physician scientist and entrepreneur whose work bridges regenerative medicine, biotechnology, and cellular agriculture. He's the co-founder of Wildtype, a San Francisco biotechnology company known for pioneering advances in cellular agriculture. Before founding Wildtype, Dr. Elfenbein researched stem cell technologies and cardiovascular regeneration during his fellowship at the Gladstone Institutes and UCSF, following clinical training in internal medicine and cardiology at Yale University. He earned both his MD and PhD through a joint program with Dartmouth and Kyoto University, combining a deep background in medicine, regenerative biology, and biotechnology. Dr. Lira Weiss is a physician scientist with decades of experience at the intersection of microbiology, medicine, and skincare innovation. He's the co-founder and managing director of BiomeMimetics and the founder and chief science officer of Weiss Bioscience. He was the founding chief medical officer at Biome, where he helped pioneer some of the first microbiome-based skincare technologies. With an MD from Stanford, a degree in microbiology from Cornell, more than 20 patents, and publications spanning chemistry, chemical pharmacology, electrophysiology, and the microbiome, Dr. Weiss has spent his career translating complex science into innovative products that advance skin health. Thank you so much again, both of you, for joining us today. Talk about the most impressive resumes I have ever seen. But we really are excited to have you back here on the show today. And I know that we got into a deep dive about the Marine Cellular Complex on our last episode number 68 on the podcast. So you can go there for a deeper dive on the science. But can you explain how Marine Cellular Complex, also known as wild salmon stem cell conditioned media, is not just another form of PDRN?
It's been interesting to understand how PDRN on its own is able to get cells in our skin to undergo a greater degree of regeneration, of wound healing and so forth. But for us, we wanted to start actually with something that was not just one molecule on its own, like PDRN. We wanted to start with the entire environment that cells grow and thrive within. And that means everything from marine collagen to the growth factors that they use and respond to, that it convinced them that it's, things are going really well and we should continue to thrive and continue to grow, to all of the different structural proteins that are also sort of part of the process of regeneration. And so for that, we actually looked to the salmon cell and realized that, as these salmon cells grow, they create the right messages to communicate with each other. They're able to organize into everything that they need to do. And so we started with that entire environment. And that's why we call it the cellular complex. Now, PDRN is just one out of tens of thousands of different molecules. And what we found is that this entire complex on its own is actually far more potent in getting cells to grow naturally, to regenerate, and actually to just preserve the health of skin. And so that is why they're different. I'd say PDRN is just one tiny part of the entire complex.
So you're getting many more benefits. And what are those benefits?
We found quite a few different benefits. And the further we go, it's been really fascinating to discover more and more. One of the most interesting is the anti-inflammatory effects that we see. So first, we've noticed that when we will give this complex to human skin cells, to dermal fibroblasts, the expression of inflammation genes goes down. So actually, PDRN also brings down some of that expression. But when we add the entire complex again, it's just far more profound. And this is something we've seen again and again, and also have seen in some of our clinicals, where people who've seen more redness on the face will put it on and will report, and we've seen in the photos as well, that there's improvement in that inflammation.
No, I just think that inflammation is the core of all these skin conditions. So by really, noticing and helping the inflammation, you're helping every skin condition and actually preventing and managing any kind of situation the skin might, have, to deal with, which is fantastic.
This is one of the most exciting journeys I've been on in the years I've been doing this. I started looking into the microbiome right around 2000 when the early data started coming out. We developed the tools to sequence DNA, and we pointed it at our favorite subject, us. And we discovered a whole lot of us wasn't us, and that we are what we call the holobiome. We are a microbial and human symbiome. We are connected. And as we got more and more data, the complexity of this became clear. And in 2014, we developed a product that was based on the notion that we had lost some of our microbiome that had health consequences. Well, like many things in biology, that was just the very beginning of the journey. And then, so if you want to prove that, all you need to do is find a community of hunter-gatherers and who are biologically intact and study their microbiome. And so we developed a relationship with an isolated community of hunter-gatherers living deep in the Amazon. And what we discovered is they don't have any inflammation at all. So in terms of their skin, things like acne, eczema, rosacea, and psoriasis don't exist. They don't have heart disease. As far as we can tell, they don't have cancer. They live about as long as we do, mid-70s, but we need 15,000 pharmaceuticals to get there, and they need none. We also discovered that we lost about 80% of our skin microbiome. And it's not so much who we lost, but what they were doing. And in the course of that discovery, and that was, almost a decade's worth of research, and that was actually published in Nature last summer, we interrogated not just who was lost, but the metabolic pathways and genetic pathways that we have lost. And part of those exposed our skin to inflammation, oxidation from the environment. And one of the consequences were that our stem cells are stressed. And the way that tends to express itself is what we think of as skin turnover time. And that is the time for your skin to completely turn over. And when you're an infant, it's about a month. And when you're older, it can be 4, 5, 6 months. And that's because in the absence of that contribution to our health from our microbiome, protection from free radicals that are just generated in the fact that we live in an oxygen environment and we're bathed in ultraviolet, to the other things in our environment that expose it. And as it stretches that out, we start seeing the consequences of inflammation. And so long ago, I saw this actually when I was a resident at Stanford, that if we can feed our stem cells the stuff that is in the media, what it'll do is that will restore a substantial amount of what we lost. And I've been working in this area for a while. And Aryé and I met each other, what is it, about 8 years ago now? Something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And as soon as I knew what he was doing, I was actually so interested in pursuing this path. I think you remember these conversations. And I said, someday you're going to go into this space, and I am going to reserve Wildtype skin as a URL for when you. And then, like many of these things, it converged over a year ago or so. And then we started this part of the journey. And, you know, the work that I'd done with the human stem cell conditioned media and the work that he was doing converged in this way that has just been remarkable. And I want to emphasize, we're just getting started.
Yeah.
The learning curve of the things that we are doing together, we are at the threshold of doing this. And the benefit.
We are excited.
Yes.
And we are very, very excited about this. What's nice is that we have always been looking what's new in the market. We knew PDRN was out in the market, but to be able to have something so much more than PDRN alone makes a big difference. So people understand PDRN and what it does, and that is like a branded name for regenerative skincare or regenerative longevity and all those wellness terms that we're using right now. But the key here is the wild salmon stem cell conditioned media has so much more than just the growth factors from PDRN alone. As you were saying, you have seen, and you're still doing studies, if I remember correctly. You're still doing more and more studies because you're learning more and more every day.
Yeah, and I want you to, since Aryé's in the food business, we're still in the food business. This is skin food. And the PDRN is like, I give you a little appetizer, or maybe even just a little amuse-bouche. This is the full meal.
I like that.
We can start looking at this in terms of all the details, but for all the years I've been working in this area, what I will tell you is the complexity of what we are finding boggles the imagination. Thousands, tens of thousands of molecules, probably more. And what each one is doing, we can poke around in these things, and we will, and try to unravel those particular puzzles and mysteries there. But at the same time, this is essentially recreating or restoring what has been lost. And the model around most skincare has been, you have a specific condition. For this specific condition, we have this specific molecule that can make that condition better. But the question of really why these things are growing, and they are, the incidence of inflammatory disease, not just in your skin, but systemically, has tripled in the past 30 years. If you see inflammation on your skin, you can rest assured you are systemically inflamed. And we all are to some extent. And that has to do with the fact that we live as industrialized Homo sapiens. We are no longer foragers. But if we put back what is missing, instead of treating a condition, instead of fixing something that's broken, we're restoring the resilience so that there are fewer things that break. And if I gave you a choice between having fewer problems or solutions to the problems you have, every one of us is going to say, I'd rather have fewer problems. Physicians like Aryé and I, when we see patients, they have problem lists. And what I discovered when I was doing internal medicine a long time ago is what patients really want is they don't want treatments for their problems. They want to go back to their life before they had the problems. And that is the journey we are with what we are doing with this.
And skincare, Fran, has changed because we're not treating a condition, we're treating prevention. And that's with early prevention and understanding that we can preserve and keep our skin, the microbiome as safe, or try to avoid conditions that can occur because we're not taking note and paying attention to all the things that we need. And that's really important. Prevention and everything is wellness, is longevity. We're all changing. Thank God. We're going to a better direction as a whole.
But this technology also needs a better delivery system.
Yeah.
So we also take this technology and we're adding the new type of deeper delivery systems that are in the market, which Metaxia checks on pricing. Am I right,
Yes.
Metaxia? You'd always check on the pricing on those?
Advanced delivery systems are more expensive because they're higher as far as technology, the newest out there. So yes, we use the best in the market, and I think that's what really makes it nice. We lyrify things. We always try to take it to the highest level of excellence, and yes, they're more expensive.
And we've been doing this actually since 2016, and we even now have a term that we use called exotech. This is different types of technology to be able to deliver actives into the skin to be able to get the results that we're getting. And the latest technology is the phospholipid encapsulation, which is able to now actually surround, let's say PDRN, which is a larger molecule, and is able to surround it with a BiomeMimetics lipid substance to get into the skin. But we also encapsulate not only the PDRN, but the wild salmon stem cell condition media.
Yeah.
So by doing this, we're able to get these actives, all these actives, deeper into the skin. So we are very excited to not only get these great ingredients from you, but to also encapsulate them, get them deeper into the skin, and be able to offer something very unique as we're like copper tripeptide, which I know Dr. Aryé, you love copper tripeptide. You already talked about that. We were laughing about it the other day. Absolutely love it. But to encapsulate these very important ingredients, very important actives into the phospholipid encapsulation, this is what makes the difference in a formulation. So to have great ingredients like this and to have great delivery systems is the game changer again in formulations.
How good is it going to be if it just kind of washes right off the skin?
Yeah.
I think there's something about being able to ensure that cells will have access to it, just in the way that they intended, as they were also kind of making these little packages and messages for each other. And that's just, one of the really impressive parts of the technology that you've developed as well.
We have 5 different forms now, from phospholipid technology, hydroxysome technology with calcium, phosphate. We have plant exosomes that we're using, liposalvation for peels, and now the phosphate encapsulation for, again, PDRN, and especially wild salmon stem cell condition media. So there is all this technology out there that's showing us that skincare has evolved quite a bit right now. It's so much different than the way it was before.
These types of technologies are derived from a deeper understanding of the wisdom of the biology. These, we call them extracellular vesicles or exosomes. This is, to make a metaphor, essentially the text messaging system of biology. This is how these molecules transit through membranes and deep into tissues. They'd already figured out how to do that. And these things are ubiquitous in nature. Your milk has exosomes in it. All sorts of things that are biologically intact. This is how the molecules move around. They're not sort of free floating in the system. They are packaged. And the interesting thing about things like the media is so many of the interesting things in there, if we leave them alone, if we respect the wisdom of the biology, they already know what to do. Not only do they know how to get there, but they know where to go. And that is programmed deep into it. And again, I will tell you, I want to emphasize this. Our knowledge is finite and our ignorance is infinite, and we're constantly learning. And as we do this, with a deeper sense of humility and respect for the biology, which is ancient, what we will find is there are ways of restoring the lost resilience, which is the foundation of our health. The thing that we lost is the resilience. From an evolutionary biology standpoint, health is the resilience in response to stress. This community of foragers, hunter-gatherers, they bend, we break. How can we restore from what we now can see what it looks like when it was intact? Because you can't restore something if you don't know what it looked like, and then translate that into all these technologies that you just outlined so that we can actually get better results. Again, not treating the condition, not fixing the condition, but feeding the system so that it can do what it evolved to do, which is prevent these things from ever happening. Bending, not breaking. We are on a journey about actually restoring what was lost so that we and our children and our grandchildren can live healthier, longer, more productive lives.
Let me ask you also, because obviously I think our listeners here can get a good sense of how much research has gone into this technology, but can you really just kind of expand on how much have you been researching this?
It began by first understanding, how do we begin by creating the foundations of nutrition for salmon cells? So before they can produce everything that we use today, we need to nourish them first. And that came from work that started in the 1960s and 1970s that we have benefited from today, by even thinking through, like, which sugars do fish cells prefer to use? What temperature do they prefer? What is the right pH for salmon cells? And this was, about 8 to 9 years of work to be able to get to the point that we could grow them reliably in a way that they were really thriving. And there are ways to very clearly see when that is the case. And to be able to then produce enough that we could, even be having these conversations. In our case, in this old converted brewery in San Francisco, and then once we got to the point where the cells were growing, thriving, multiplying in these ways, that's when we could start to just really begin that journey of understanding what it is that they produce during the course of their lives, how they communicate with each other. And that started by looking at which peptides they create, which proteins they create, what are the different, when they make the little signaling bundles for each other or the exosomes, what's in those? How are those different from the ones that are from what's not in the exosomes, for example? And all of these curiosity-driven questions have led us on this journey to further and further explore the complexity of the Marine Cellular Complex. And it's been fascinating, and we're nowhere near the end of understanding that.
I think, Dr. Weiss, there was a word on your email. What was it? I quickly looked at it. Anna, what was it that we were looking at?
Oh, the secretome. Okay.
Yes, secretome.
Yes.
So
Secretome.
Cells secrete, they release all kinds of materials. Cells are constantly communicating with each other through these messages. The complexity of this is mind-boggling. We have been lulled into a sense of, like, thinking of biology as an engineering problem, that we could have enough of this information, we could just work out the engineering. Biology isn't and never will be an engineering problem. It is so complex. It is the combined wisdom of literally billions of years of evolution. We talk about the microbiome, which we just acknowledged that we had about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It's 4 billion years old. So the suggestion that we actually understand these kinds of things. So the secretome is, these are the ways these cells communicate. Science is a disciplined practice of wonder. And that is one of the joys of science, that we can approach these complicated problems with almost the beginner's mind of a child, and yet bring all the tools of our training to try to sort through something that is complex almost beyond our imagination. And as we do, and we discover these little pieces, we need to remember that have this deep sense of humility. So you look at the secretome, the types of things, we find 1 or 2 or 3, and we think we actually know a lot. And then you find out that there's hundreds or thousands. And once you discover that, you have to come back and look at it and go, okay, we're at the very beginning. And one of the things I'm quite confident, as I said, the biggest myth about the microbiome is that we know anything about it yet. It's still very early. But one of the things I'm quite confident about it is that everything is connected. And those connections are ancient. And that they have, and by the way, it's not just, at a cellular, a molecular level or an organ level. I think it extends out to a level of how we interact with each other and with our environment.
Yeah.
And most of those connections, we're just discovering them. And we have made decisions which cut them or lost them. And we have now this opportunity to start to figure out how do we reconnect again, starting at this very, cellular level. And what I love about working with these biologically intact materials, like Aryé's material here, is that the complexity is something that will, if you enjoy discovery, you will be able to do this for many more careers than any of us have, and you will still just make little inroads in it. But the beauty of doing it is because we're respecting the wisdom of this biology, and we have ways of doing this a way that can restore something that is really important. We, living in a modern industrialized society, we have made sacrifices in terms of our health and our children's health. This is an opportunity that both Aryé and I went into medicine because we are concerned about health. We see these problems and we want to make them better. And the tools that we had before, the life sciences today, biology, medicine, is where physics was 100 years ago. And you can imagine these classical physicists with their equation watching Einstein and his oncoming chaos and dismissing it as either wrong or irrelevant. And it's not that what they were doing was wrong. It's not that the way we approach medicine as an engineering problem is wrong. It's just a small part of a much larger, much more complicated, and much more dimensional problem. And we, at this particular point in time, have the rare opportunity to knock on that door and start looking through it and seeing what is there and finding ways to translate that into meaningful interventions that make the lives of us and our children, our grandchildren better. And that is, we should be eternally grateful that we are here now with this opportunity. And it's very exciting. I mean, this collaboration to me, is a form of deep play.
Wow.
I like
it
that.
will be. That is
I like
for
that.
sure. We have a lot to do. And we thank you so very much with all of this information. Just the fact that even when we named it the REGEN Line and PDRN, the only reason it's PDRN is because people could associate with it. But the PDRN is not the main thing. It is the wild salmon stem cell condition media. True. That is the main ingredient that's being delivered by Exotech. That is the main one that does a lot of the heavy work. There is PDRN in there also, because when we looked at your charts, you had one chart that said if you use your Marine Cellular Complex, and you also put in some PDRN, you even got a little more boost. Very little, but a little more. So we said, go ahead. We'll even at it. But thank you so very much for that wonderful ingredient that we absolutely are trying our hardest to make sure everybody understands what a great ingredient it is.
I think the main word is actually the regen part. This is really what we're all working towards. And that's such an interesting word that can mean many different things. And, in our case, I think it starts by sustaining the health of cells with all of the right nutrients, with all the right growth factors, so that they all know that they're okay. And that's, when I say they, I'm talking about our skin. And from there, it's actually doing that with consistency so that there actually is this regrowth of what was injured, of what, has been distressed previously. And that regeneration, that is something that every cell has the capability to do. And most at a certain point will kind of slow down or stop that. And so what we're trying to do with this ingredient on its own, which again is tens of thousands of other smaller ingredients and molecules, what we're trying to do with that is to get cells back to that state where they are able to then grow in the way that they would when they were truly regenerating and growing as they did when they were younger.
Well, then let me follow up with something. A question that we received lately was about the statement that the wild salmon stem cell conditioned media is 4 times more regenerative than PDRN alone. Can we talk about what that number represents and what was actually measured?
There are a few different comparisons that we've made. And one of them was to see what happens to the production of collagen. And I don't mean us just putting collagen on the skin or injecting it. I mean getting the cells to make their own collagen. And what we found is when we added the Marine Cellular Complex, the conditioned media, cells made about 4 times as much collagen than they did previously. And this is one very important sign of regeneration. Another one is the production of a very important protein, elastin, which isn't as easy to get cells to produce. And in our case, adding some of the complex actually increased the elastin production. So getting the cells to make their own elastin, not just dumping it on the cells, like they produce it themselves. It increased it by over 9 times.
Wow,
We've also seen that when we look at inflammation genes, so really a classical markers of inflammation, when these are high, that typically means we're in a more inflammatory state. And we've seen the reduction of those inflammation genes when we add the complex. And then probably the most, those are impressive on their own, but I think the greatest signal that we've seen, and this one really separates out the PDRN alone from the entire complex, is what's considered the wound healing aspect. And essentially that is cells moving into an area that is kind of empty or sort of doesn't have the cells. And, for our skin, that's many of the little tears, micro abrasions, little things that, as we go about our day, there are a lot of these spots. And so what we've seen is that there is probably the most profound response of just adding the entire complex. And it makes sense because we're not just adding one little thing and, hoping that the cells will just react to that. It's actually containing or providing that entire environment so cells feel like they can rush in, be sustained, be nourished, and basically rebuild.
Wound healing is such a big word. It doesn't mean you have to have a severe wound. It means everyday life. It means what their skin will stress out for many different reasons. And we're constantly feeding that and reassuring that and maintaining the wellness of the skin cells of what you're talking about. So wound healing is very important. What I've noticed with the 2 products that we have with you together collaborated, it's changing. But what it's doing is that people see that aha moment. Oh my God, my skin feels better. I feel more energized. I feel it's more than just correcting a condition. It's really maintaining that youthful opportunity that we can maintain that skin at a very healthy state. So wound for me is going out in the sun and putting a serum or a cream on that's reassuring this, any kind of sensors that go off for the wound is starting or anything to do with the skin's needs, it addresses it in such a unique way.
When the system is stressed, the response is inflammatory. And inflammation, if we consider it going from, let's say, a 0 to 10 scale, where 0 is no inflammation, and there's none of us who have that, and there's 10, which would be raging inflammation, which is very clinically apparent, somewhere in the middle, we can see it. And that shows up as the things we see as things like acne or eczema, rosacea, psoriasis, and many other systemic conditions. But in the 0 to 5 range, you can't see it. It's subclinical. And it accumulates over time. So when we talk about wound healing, we tend to think about the wounds we can see.
Right.
But at a microscopic level, this type of damage, everywhere from a molecular level to a structural tissue level, we evolved. We had all the tools as a species to correct that, to fix it. We were self-repairing mechanism. I've done this in talks, and I say, what would you say if I told you for most of the time we are on the planet, the diseases we regard as inevitable, that they're coming to get us, just didn't exist anywhere. Evolution doesn't produce a creature with the burden of inflammatory conditions as industrialized Homo sapiens. We did that. And if we can restore this, it will constantly repair it. The things that we think of as aging, wrinkles, all these other things, these are the accumulated damage of subclinical inflammation, the 0 to 5 inflammation that we don't see, over an extended period of time. This is the accumulated damage of the fact that your skin turnover time is now stretched out. And the damage accumulates that shows up as things that people think of as zombie cells and other types of damage. But when we put back something was missing, it's very different than the approach that, Aryé and I spent our years training, which is you have a disease and here's the medication for your disease. We get that because here's the disease. We poked around inside the mechanism. We found a place to introduce a novel material to treat the symptoms of the disease, but it doesn't address the question of why are these conditions increasing so dramatically? Why have they tripled in the past 30 years? And we don't really address that particular piece. What we're doing here is instead of putting in something, a drug or something that was not actually native to our physiology, we put back something that was missing. Rather than the off-target or side effects being adverse, the off-target effects are beneficial. And this first account with AO Biome, where we put back this bacteria on the skin, and people saw also to benefits from doing that. And then we noticed something in our safety data. We lowered your blood pressure. Putting bacteria on your face twice a day lowered your blood pressure. 6 millimeters systolic, 4 diastolic. Doesn't sound like much, but it is. Because when you put things back, instead of adding things that were not there, the side effects tend to be beneficial. So we're taking this complex material, of which has tens of thousands of things in it, but it's biologically optimized and it's minimally manipulated. We respect the composition. What I expect we're going to see as we look deeper and deeper is not just the beneficial effects on skin. We talk about your skin being your largest organ. And when we were in training, they said it was 1.7 meters squared. Well, it would be if it was completely flat. But if you take into account all the follicles and all that surface, it's somewhere around 20 to 25 meters square. It's about the same area for your lungs or for your gut. And it gets a substantial amount of our blood flow. So somewhere between 15 and 50% of the blood that comes out of your heart goes through your skin at any given point in time.
Wow.
If I reduce inflammation on the skin, many of these molecules that are the product of inflammation, which otherwise would wash directly into your bloodstream and into your central circulation, are reduced. So, prediction, hypothesis, as we reduce skin inflammation with this particular material, there's a good chance we're going to see systemic benefits from it as well.
Well, I got to also ask then, what is it that makes Lira Clinical's approach to regenerative skincare so different? Now, when you look at everything that you've been doing together, what makes it so different?
First of all, curiosity and enthusiasm to understand, we have been working with these individual molecules in this way, and now there's an opportunity to think through all of this and to understand more, to go deeper into the data, to really to come here to visit and see exactly how this was created. This, to me, was the foundation of the most powerful partnership. And so this is why Lira is first in the world to have this in market, available to people. It was the recognition that this was something special, and also the ability to just move with it. That is the kind of energy that we like to mirror. That is the kind of energy that has been an important part of everything that we have done, and it felt like just a completely natural fit from the the very, very beginning.
Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate that very much, and we look forward to many, many more, all the innovation that you're doing.
We belong to the same club, and we
Yes, we
recognize
do.
each other. And, part of our job is to see around corners. And most people suffer from what I'll call hardening of the categories. This is how it's always done. But you saw around the corner with us. And that is, first of all, it's very exciting, and it's quite rare. And the ability to do that, this club, look, it's a privilege to belong to this club. And and we have the opportunity with this to make a difference that'll matter way past where we can possibly imagine today. We're just starting. This is, to me, when I wake up in the morning, This is what makes it really exciting. This is what makes it play. And, to recognize what we're doing and the importance of this, which you did right away. We don't get a lot of that. We don't get enough of that. How about that?
We want to make a difference too in the skincare industry, but you are making a difference in our wellness and our health. Without you and what you're doing is and sharing this knowledge with us, but you're changing the world. And that's what we are so lucky to be part of. This club, like you said, it's just a special club to belong to because it's more, we can't measure the time that you've put into this research. You guys have worked so hard without the beneficial value of it money-wise. Your heart and soul is for good. And Lira is so proud to be part of that good.
And we appreciate it very much.
I
do have to say,
oh my God.
I do have to say one thing. Our Vietnamese distributor, when we were training them, he said, okay, I get the message now. The message is fortify the skin first, and then you start with treatments. And we said, you got the message. Fortify the skin first. So with our REGEN Line and our wild salmon stem cell conditioned media, we're very excited because we are fortifying the skin first.
Yeah.
And that is the most important.
Doing it right.
Well, we appreciate having both Dr. Elfenbein and Dr. Weiss here with us today. And again, we love questions and conversations. So please send your questions for Francine and Metaxia by sending an email to info@skindepthconvo.com. That's info@skindepthconvo.com. And that's going to do it for us today. Don't forget, you can subscribe to A SkinDepth Convo on any of your favorite podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts and Spotify, where you can also watch the show there as well. And you can also watch the show on Lira Clinical's YouTube page at Lira Clinical. So make sure to check that out and follow A SkinDepth Convo on all our social media channels. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, you name it. Just go to @SkinDepthConvo. And from all of us here at the show, I'm Anna Kagarakis, and we'll talk soon.
This podcast is brought to you by Lira Clinical and the award-winning Mystique Illuminating Beauty Oil. Mystique Beauty Oil's amazing skin-friendly hydration delivers potent antioxidants and anti-inflammatories with Lira Clinical's exclusive Mass Tech brightening technology. This luxury oil blend is infused with vitamin C for a clean, dry finish on the skin. Use by itself or add to your favorite hydrator. Beauty oil delivers your glow and go look. Contact your local Lira retailer for additional information at liraclinical.com.